as well as distribution management as it pertains to pharmaceutical products. So let's look at the objectives. So the objectives provide for us appreciating the terminology, as well as the concepts and the basic processes of inventory management. We are also going to look at the tools and the elements that are used in good storage practices and inventory management. We are going to look at when and how to place an order and the considerations thereof. We are also going to look at the quality problems that are encountered in storage. So, inventory management and distribution management always aim at maintaining the quality of the product, but not just the quality of the product. We want to make products accessible also. If we are not going to arrange our storage facility properly, some products will not be accessed on account of the arrangement thereof. For example, if you are going to put critical products behind products that are not critical, that delay, or if you don't have equipment to retrieve products, they won't be accessible in time. And then from the provider, who are the pharmacists, the clinicians and the nurses, as well as the patient, they see no difference if the products are not accessible. It's just the same thing as having the products not being there at all. So what is inventory management? So the aim is to have adequate stocks at all times. We also want to maintain quality like we've alluded to. And then we want programs to run. We want services to run at all the delivery points. These are the hospitals, be them public, be them private. And products will need to be available when they are needed. Okay, so inventory management, distribution management is at the heart of the drug supply chain. Without inventory, we cannot provide clinical services. We cannot treat patients, in short. So we need to monitor stock levels if we have to have stock availability. There's no way we are going to have a situation where at any particular moment you do not know what you have in stock. Okay, so we'll look at tools later. The computer systems, or if you don't have computers, we'll briefly look at how you can manipulate Excel. So inventory management, good inventory management is going to reduce costs and it will increase your effectiveness as a program. If you are going to hold a lot of stock, if you are a private entity, a private hospital, pharmacy, you are tying cash in that stock, and that's a cost to your business. Even in public sector systems, it becomes a problem because that stock is not being used. Remember, money was spent, huge amounts of money. So inventory management, good inventory management reduces costs. Poor inventory management, the consequences are obvious. We are going to have losses in storage, or if your ordering system is not up to date, you are going to encounter a lot of shortages. So when you have your inventory right, with good inventory management practices, you will ensure that products will be available at the right time and in the right quantity. So timely distribution of products is what is critical to the drug supply chain. Any delays will mean that services won't go on for that particular time. This can result in death and increase their morbidity. If you're going to supply the wrong quantities that are insufficient, it will result to the same effect. There will be increased morbidity, there will be increased deaths, and your healthcare system will fail to function. So we need to monitor consumption as well as quality. So the way you monitor consumption, you have 400 drugs in your pharmacy. It's impossible to monitor each and every drug, but there is a way that you can use computer systems. Or if you don't have a computer, like I said, you can use Excel to have this visibility so that at any given time, you do not have stockouts of critical products. So when you make mistakes in selection or quantification or procurement, this will reflect in your inventory, even at the time you will be distributing. And it will be very difficult for you to rectify these mistakes. Remember when we looked at the drug supply cycle, the chain, the way it functions, one problem at one stage will affect the entire chain up to the time you are processing that prescription. So like we've alluded to, without inventory, there will be no clinical services at all. Okay, and there will be no public health outcomes. Then you cannot have a health population. So with these principles that we are learning this evening, inventory management in the real world is a practice that is relegated, you see. But it's a very important function, as we are going to look to see in the later slides. So clinical services, in short, and health outcomes depend on the inventory that is being held. So let's look at the terminologies now. These will help us understand, these will help us manage and control inventory in any given setting, whether you're at a central store, whether you are working for partner organizations, whether you are working for retail pharmacies, or whether you are working for public hospitals, the principles are the same. So you have what you call the average monthly consumption. This is a moving average. So the average monthly consumption applies to all the medicines in stock. You need to know the average monthly consumption. This is the rate at which products are consumed. And the value of this rate is what you are going to use to reorder. If you just order without using the average monthly consumption, the consequences are obvious. You're going to overstock and waste, or you are going to underorder and disrupt the supply chain. So how is the average monthly consumption calculated? So we take the total issues in a month. Let's say each month you are recording how much you are issuing. If you are a private pharmacy, obviously you'll be using a computer system. the point of sale. It will be calculating. So you expect that with computer systems, the average monthly consumption is going to be calculated automatically. But we do not have computer systems that calculate average monthly consumption in our public hospitals at the moment. Yes, computers are there, but mainly you find that it is semi-automated. There's some point in which you have to do this manually. Okay, so let's say for each month you've compiled your data. If you've been issuing products for 7 months or 6 months, you just divide by that number. So we are given this example of efavirenz, 600 milligrams. If in the last 6 months, 900 tablets were dispensed, sorry, yes, 900 tablets, we just need to divide 6 by 900. And then, sorry, 900, sorry, 6 divided into 900, you get 150 tablets. So this is indicative in the sense that every month we are using 150 tablets. So with this information, it is easy for you to order. You won't under order and you won't over order. So the average monthly consumption has to be calculated regularly. Why? Because consumption fluctuates. Like, for example, antihistamines or maybe asthma medication. In this season we are in, you find that there will be demand for inhalers and antihistamine tablets. The demand is not the same as when you are in other seasons. Okay, so sometimes, for example, if you look at malaria, you find that there will be a spike in consumption in the rainy season. So you cannot say the AMC you used for Coartem in June will be the same in December. So you have to consider all these factors, the confounding factors that will help you understand your consumption. And then also, there will be times when a product will be out of stock. So in the case of efavirenz 150, if in the intervening months you had stockouts, right? You cannot say my consumption is the calculation that I've obtained 150. No. Later on, we are going to look at how we calculate adjusted average monthly consumption in times when we have stockouts. The batch number. So batch numbers normally are provided by the manufacturers. These appear on the label, but why batch numbers? We want to track if there will be any challenge in the process of distribution. If there's a quality problem, it is easy to do a product recall, okay? So when we are doing quality control as well, what makes us do it in a qualitative manner is the batch number. So each batch is going to be tested, and if the batch is found to have quality issues, it means the entire quantity for that batch has to be quarantined, okay? But if it's the same manufacturer, you find there's one problem in one batch, but the other batches of the same expiry date by the same manufacturer are okay, it won't mean that all the batches from that manufacturer are faulty. No, it's just that batch number that fails the quality test. We also have buffer stocks. So buffer stocks are safety stocks. So these are necessary to avoid shortages. So in our current system, in our current inventory management practice or design, there is a provision for buffer stock, but I think this is not being considered carefully or calculated carefully in most cases. So it's important that as you are calculating your order quantities, you take into account the buffer stock. We are going to see how buffer stocks are accounted for. So buffer stocks are important. Also, if there is a delivery delay, or if there is an increase in consumption because of an epidemic or a pandemic, before you run out, you can have something to use before you replenish or reorder. Okay, so now it's important to understand that buffer stocks are measured in terms of months of stock. They are not measured in terms of actual units like 1 by 1,000 blister packs. And then the standard is that you calculate your buffer stock to be 1 month worth of supply. So in case of a delay, if your provider, your supplier is not turning up in a month's time, you'll have something to use. But again, be careful, sometimes space to even keep that buffer stock. We look at the first expired, first out principle. So this is a very important principle, whether you are using a manual system or whether you are using a computerized system. Even a computer system is programmed to manage FIFO. So what expires first is what you are going to dispense first, rather than the other way around. So why? If you're not going to observe FIFO in your pharmacy, you are going to have a lot of losses, because before you know it, unaware, you just find that your products are expired. So it's extremely important for a pharmacist to observe expiry dates regularly. And then FIFO differs from FIFO, first in, first out. Okay, this can apply maybe to perishables in the food industry. But in the pharmaceutical industry, in the distribution chain, we use FIFO. Okay, there will also be times when your products that are incoming will have a shorter expiry than the products that are on your shelf. So you have to distribute the ones you've received with a short expiry first. Okay, so basically, you should take note that with pharmaceuticals, FIFO is the one that is used, not FIFO. Sorry, FIFO, not FIFO. The Logistics Management Information System. Now, this is described as a system, but it can be a manual system, it can be an electronic system. So for Zambia right now, we use an electronic system that is called Electronic Logistics Management Information System. So this is a very important system because this is what controls your information and inventory. So it collects data from facilities, your suppliers, your stock figures, and then it organizes it in a logical way so that you can retrieve it as you need it for decision-making purposes. So this can be at the central warehouse to the service delivery point. Now, it is important to distinguish that LMIS is different from HMIS. So LMIS looks at logistics, and then HMIS looks at the demographic and mobility data. But later on, when we do quantification, we'll look at how the two can be used to arrive at accurate quantification figures. There's also what is called rotation stock. So this is stock that is kept to this is stock that is kept to meet intended demands under normal circumstances. It's important to look at rotation stock to be stock that is available to cover for the next delivery. So how do we calculate it? It's calculated by multiplying the average monthly consumption with the number of months in which you are going to have your next delivery. So this is illustrated in this example. So you have a 5,600 milligram tablets. You have 100 tablets, that's a tin of 100 tablets. So if the next delivery is in 4 months, you need to multiply 4 by 100 tablets to arrive at the rotation stock. The shelf life. So this is the life of a product from the date of manufacture to the date to which it is going to expire, or the date at which it is going to expire. So for example, you have a product that has 11 months of stock. What does this mean? It means that in 11 months' time, the stock is going to expire. So you refer to that as the remaining shelf life, or just shelf life. So now this concept is very important, especially in pharmaceutical procurement. So the standard, when you are receiving products, make sure that the shelf life is at least 75%. And then if you are buying using a contract, remember to state this in your contract. It should be very clear. The expiry date, this is a date, the last date in which we cannot guarantee that the products under specific conditions can be distributed and stored or even displayed for sale. So expiry dates come with a controversy. So when does a drug expire? If the label just says, if the label says June 2019, there's been a lot of argument, but if you look at compendia, the reference literature available, a product labeled 30th June 2020 expires on the 30th of June. So it's the last day of the month, not the first day of the month. So I think you take note of that, because as you go to practice, I think you find this debate. It's ongoing despite clarification from Zamra. So if products have exceeded the date that the label says they should not be used afterward, they have to be disposed of. So I think that when we use the 6 months, no. In the current quality framework, that doesn't apply. You just have to discard it. Stock on hand. So this is a stock that will be available at any given point. Okay. So in other words, this is rotation stock plus the buffer stock. If you add the two, they are going to amount to what we call stock on hand. So stock on hand is expressed in units as opposed to months. So if you have, for example, 500 by 1,000 tins of paracetamol, that's how you present it. Okay, we've been warned. In the next 10 minutes, we are going to log off and log in again. So take note. Perhaps that will provide us an opportunity for a very short break whilst we are logging in. Yes, McLaurin.
Sir, I don't know. I was following closely on how you were explaining the expiry date for the expiry for a drug. So I just want to find out why then is it like for drugs like magnesium sulfate, which are used for management of preeclampsia, those there are extents where people still go ahead to use them even when they are in the expired state.
That is wrong. That is wrong. Okay. It's not provided for in the quality assurance framework. We are putting a patient at risk. Okay. So now in extreme cases, really, where you have to save a life, right? And we know that depending on how you keep the product, the storage conditions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before you decide to go ahead to use something that is expired, you have to do an assay, right? An assay will determine whether the pharmacopoeia standard, reference standard, if the drug should be between 95 and 100%. If you find that it's within range, yes, you can use it, but there are other issues again, right? It's not only the assay that determines, the safety of a product. No. What about intermediate products of degradation, for example? We do not know what those intermediates, is stored for quite some time. It starts to degrade slowly, right? And if you look at the degradation process in most cases, they are intermediate compounds that are produced. So we do not know. So I think it is not right. Okay. That's wrong practice. It's not acceptable anywhere.
Okay.
Let's continue. Any question? Any question? Yes, Swatile.
Sir, you didn't explain on the adjusted average monthly consumption.
Yes.
You said you are going to explain.
Oh, yeah. There's a part where we'll be looking at calculations. That's what I meant.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm a little behind
on
the difference between the rotation stock and the buffer stock.
Okay, you see, rotation stock simply means you've got 500 tins of paracetamol on your shelf, right? And your next delivery is in 3 months. You see that? Because
yes.
you know how much you use per month, right? You get the two data sets, right?
Yes.
You receive a product in 3 months and you know how much you use per month. Now to account for those 3 months, when you are ordering, right, you have to factor it in your order quantity. And that's what you call the rotation stock. Okay?
Yes.
Okay, we'll look at the calculations. We'll explain that in detail. All right.
Okay, sir, thank you.
So we move on. Okay, we'll be logged in. So you use the same password to log in again. I'll admit everyone quickly. All right, so for example, let's look at this example. We're looking at stock on hand. The AMC is 100 tablets. There are 3 months until the next delivery. And there's also 1 month of buffer stock. So the total quantity on the day of the receipt is 300 tablets plus 100, which is the buffer stock. So you will have 400 tablets, okay? So your stock on hand will be 4 months worth of stock. So we'll look in detail how to arrive at these quantities. Now, what are the consequences of poor inventory and distribution management? Okay, so you find that services won't be provided regardless of how well you did your quantification and your procurement, how well you invested in this activity or these activities, the other activities of the drug distribution chain. No matter how much work you did, if you are going to mess up your inventory, there won't be any service that you are going to provide in a satisfactory way to the public, okay? Unfortunately, research shows that this is often the case, okay? So let's look at the bad practices in storage and distribution. These are practices that we should never ever condone, all right? So you have products that are stacked on the floor. This is a familiar sight if you visit some of our health facilities, okay? You find that they've stacked carton boxes on the floor. Now, what are the consequences? Okay, so water, it can be in form of visible liquid water or moisture, will be absorbed into the carton. The carton is going to be damaged, and then that damage will possibly affect the product also. If a carton is damaged, you will have pests, small animals like rats, they can go into the carton box. And you know that drugs have to be kept clean. So here we have to look at the effects of water. If you look at certain drugs like aspirin or artemether lumefantrine, they are highly hygroscopic. So you find that quality challenges will start appearing here and there. Okay, we have a minute to be logged off. I'll just pause. When Zoom logs us out, let's log in quickly. I'm just giving you, I think, 2 minutes to log in back. We have to continue. So we have a minute. I'm just giving you a warning. Let's continue. If your storage, it can be your dispensary or your bulk store, is hot and damp, what does it do? It will affect the potency of the active pharmaceutical ingredients. And then the quantities that you are going to supply also will be affected. So what does temperature do to drugs? Temperature accelerates the rate of degradation of drug compounds, okay? This particular quality problem is not something you can view with your eye, right? It is difficult to detect, okay? And it can have serious consequences on the efficacy and treatment. So you have to always ensure that you have air conditioning system in your store. Okay, we have less than a minute left. I'm just giving you an update. There are 62 of you, and I expect 62 of you to be back, according to the register here. So your boxes will not be properly misconceptions rather. This drug doesn't move. Please, there's no such a thing. Okay? If the AMC for the entire year is 1, it doesn't mean you shouldn't order that product. Order it. That's your AMC, right? Mathematics doesn't lie. But of course, you have to consider the buffer stock and rotation stock. So if you consider these aspects, which are real, you can say, okay, I'm just going to order 5 vials of anti-snake venom, for example. So you find that people will run through an analysis. Anything that has an AMC, average monthly consumption of 1 to 5, they'll be skipped, especially in ELMIS, saying these don't move. And also our practice emphasizes so much on expiry dates. So these two elements, when you critically evaluate them and look at them, they are not helping us at all. So please, it's not a visual check on your shelf to say this doesn't move. No, it is the numbers on your stock control card. I think this one, please, you have to take note. So in summary on this point of stock availability, individual drugs, right? If your AMC tells you it is 1, can you please order it? For example, the drug I gave, you don't know when a snake is going to bite somebody. Okay, so in the same line, you have to ensure that consumption is monitored for each product. We'll briefly explain how that will be done using Excel. Okay, you have to implement efficient ordering monitoring system as well as it denotes that there are not going to be any delays in the process. Products have to be traceable. So make sure that the batch numbers will be recorded on the stock control card. Okay? And then you should also ensure that quality is maintained. How are you going to do that? The storage conditions. So let's look at ideal storage systems. If you are a consultant designing a pharmaceutical grade storage facility, by the way, they won't ask a civil engineer, right? They'll ask you as a pharmacist. Now, it's always the case to say, I didn't learn this in school. So I don't know how I'm even going to give them consultancy. No, 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 no. It doesn't work like that. The very things we are discussing here are the very things we are going to recommend. The only difference is that, for example, if we talk about heat, humidity, and light exposure, we just need to go in detail. And that's now, that would be a product of research. You go on the internet, you refer to WHO, you refer to all the, the reputable organization and come up with a document, okay? It can be done. So the idea that no, we just learned a few slides and a few notes doesn't hold, no. The purpose of this lecture is to give you the idea, at the same time, make you apply the idea, and at the same time, provide more information. By the way, you'll be the only expert. So let's move on. So storage systems, anywhere, pharmacy, dispensary, You have the central medical store, you have the hospital bulk store. This is what constitutes, a good storage system. So you have to consider the heat, the humidity, and light exposure. You have to minimize these extreme factors. Pharmaceutics has given us knowledge how these affect product quality, but we are looking at the supply chain here. So the same principles are here. What you should ask yourself is, how are we going to prevent heat? Air conditioning systems, right? So don't just say, for example, an air conditioner. No, air conditioning system rather. The other conditioning systems that you can look at. How do you prevent humidity? You have to give me what you are going to do to prevent humidity, all right? And how are you going to minimize exposure? These slides are about application rather than you regurgitating what is written here. So you consider ventilation also, okay? How you are going to control the temperature. Also, how you are going to organize stock. We've seen that if your stock is not well organized, you are going to cause a delay, right? And then you also have to prevent your warehouse from extreme temperatures. I think we've looked at this. The warehouse should be well ventilated, okay, and conditioned to avoid extreme temperatures. Also, the outside walls, they have to be insulated. Why are you insulating the outside walls, for example? You're trying to minimize the heat, okay? Also consider the storage space. So there should be 3 meters square of storage space available for every meter square of space. So have you seen this information? It's very rare. So here, how can you interpret it? So, for example, you know that these are the products that are needed to be stored. And you'll have a rough idea of the meter square that a carton box occupies, right? And then, based on this calculation, you are going to recommend the meter squares that are required for your dispensary or for your storeroom. If you look at the new hospitals that have been built, really, you find that there's no storage space. Okay, why? Pharmacists never had their input, right? Okay, and then if you look at the actual scenario for these hospitals, pharmacists were never consulted at all. Okay, so it's just now that through PSZ, we've begun to address these issues. But if you look at other hospitals, for example, I think Nola Central Hospital, Chipata Central Hospital so far, these are the hospitals that have seemed to have very adequate storage space if you compare them to other hospitals. Now, they won't stop building hospitals today, no? This will be ongoing. Perhaps at that time, you will have a chance to recommend the floor space. So don't forget this aspect, right? And then also, a good storage system should provide for different tasks, like where you are going to receive the products, where you are going to put products with quality problems, where you are going to ship your products, where you are going to put your damaged or expired products, and so on. So as you are designing the store, or even the store that you start managing, you have to make sure that there's provision for these separate tasks. And then also the surfaces that you use, they must be durable, and they have to be cleaned, you know, and maintained easily. If it's a new construction, you have to ensure that the roof is sloping, because if the roof is flat, water is going to stagnate. The consequences are obvious. To minimize light, right? You are going to recommend that there will be shutters on the windows. And then certain products should be kept between 2 to 8 degrees. So there has to be a fridge or a cold room. And then the way you are going to arrange equipment and products, ensure that products are on the pallets, or they are on wooden boards if you have no pallet, or they are on the shelves, or they are on cupboards, okay? Then you should always ensure that products are kept away from pests, water, and dirt. Now, let me just give you a practical scenario. When you look at hospitals, right? So if you walk in bulk stores, this is what you observe. Shelves are empty, right? But there are a lot of boxes on pallets. And if you ask, but why can't you keep all this medication on the shelves? Then the answer is very amazing, right? They'll tell you, no, it is easy to pick the whole box and, you know, issue out. But no, that's a wrong way of arranging stock. Why? You are going to cause delays. So for you, I think you have to ensure that all the shelves, right, are filled up. And then if there have to be extra boxes on the floor, it should be very minimal. And that allows you also space to do what? To walk, right? And, you know, assemble your products. And also, if your store is clear, your walkways are clear in your store, you're not going to have an invasion of pests. You know, small animals like a very crowded place. And then products should never be stored directly on the floor. I think we looked at this. So in summary, a well-designed storage system should facilitate storage, and then it should utilize space. That's the example, the practical example I've just been talking about. You have to utilize all the space on the shelf. And then a well-designed storage system should reduce spoilage, okay? And it shouldn't have expired products in excess unless there's a very good reason for a product to expire. And then it should maintain the quality of medicine. And then it should reduce theft and fraud. And then most importantly, it should have updated information. And this information is kept on the stock control cards. So what are the tools that will help us achieve all these? The first one is the logistics management information system. I think we looked at it. This can be electronic or manual. The stock control card, if you're at the central store, it will be the warehouse management system. And then in your dispensary or in your bulk store, you're going to have ELMIS, or the electronic management information system. So let's look at how we detect quality problems in storage. So for capsules, check if they are cracked, check if they are crumbled, or check if they are discoloring. For aluminum packaging, check if there are any spills, because the aluminium foil is broken. For packets, check if any of the contents are missing. And then for, detecting deterioration, like tablets, you have to check if there are spots on the tablet surface, or the peels are crashing easily, or if they are sticking together. Or in some instances, there will be an unusual smell like aminophylline or aspirin. And then liquids, check if they are discoloring, check if there's a sediment, if the suspension, it's not suspending, there's a sediment at the bottom. Injectables, check if there are any solid materials in the vial after you shake vigorously. For vials, you're going to check if the cap is intact, the cap that closes the container. And then also check for cracks, and then check for cloudiness of the liquid. For example, solutions, if bacterial growth settles in, you can see that the liquid will begin to be cloudy. For condoms, check if they are brittle or damaged, but mostly check if the lubricant is leaking. Normally the lubricant is mineral oil based. You can see the mark on the packet. So if you see a pack with a stain of oil, a pack of condoms, just know that they are not okay. For syringes, remember syringes are sterile, right? So if the packaging is ripped off, it is open or broken or perforated, just know that it will be dangerous to use that syringe on a patient, or if any of the contents are missing in the package. So for all items, the general rule is that the carton has to be sealed, and then labels have to be readable, and then all the labels should have the expiry date. So these are the general rules, but for specific formulations or product categories, you have to consider these. So when do you do your quality problems? At receipt, you also do them periodically as your products are in storage. Okay, so at this stage, we can look at your research prospects. So these are the research areas you can look at. I won't discuss anything. Maybe I'll just give you a minute to briefly scribble. Those of us who can manage. Any questions at this stage whilst you are scribbling? Or you are scribbling? Yes, Kasonde.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So I'm kindly asking if you can give a practical explanation that would differentiate the rotation stock from the buffer stock.
Okay. The rotation stock refers to the time that you are ordering. Don't look at the stock that is already existing. The beginning is that you look at the stock that you want to order, right? Now, the stock that, okay, let's consider this, because if I start with explaining the stock that you're anticipating, maybe you miss the point. Okay, we have 10 minutes. Let me just explain that. Now, this is the point. You have stock in your pharmacy, 100 units, 100 of anything, paracetamol tins, right? Now, you are making an order, and from the time you are going to make an order to the time your stock will be received, there is 3 months. So as you are calculating, as we will see in the calculations that we'll look at later, you have to consider the average monthly consumption of each of the 3 months. Okay? So you are going to say, for example, my average monthly consumption is 100 units. So 3 times 100 to give you 300. So your 300 becomes your rotation stock. If you add it together with the stock that you have on hand, let's say you have 100, it becomes 400. Okay? And that changes from your rotation stock to stock at hand. So I think for you to understand, just wait for the calculations. Any more questions?
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. Have you scribbled this, all of you?
Yes, sir.
I can move the slide. Only one is answering. I need 2 or more answers.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, I can.
Just a moment, sir. Maybe just one more question.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, please. Yeah. Considering that we've already talked about the rotational stock and the buffer stock, I was
Yes.
asking, assuming we make an order, and then we talked about the FIFO, first expired as the first out. Yes, sir. So in a case where we order while the buffer stock is still intact, it hasn't yet been used, does that mean to say that we first have to use the buffer stock, then replace it with the ordered stock, or maybe that buffer stock just has to remain intact, and then maybe it might be considered as unused product or anything like that? I just wasn't certain.
Okay, thanks. Obviously, if the buffer stock is right, we have. Are you clear on that one?
Sorry, sir, just say that again. I think the line was cut.
If the buffer stock is short dated, that's what you mean, right?
Yes, sir.
We have to use it and replace it with what we'll be receiving.
Okay.
The decision you make.
Oh, okay.
All right.
All right, sure.
Okay, I think going downwards now, we'll look at the calculations. I didn't announce that you come with your calculators. Okay, looking at the time and what we've covered so far, I think we end here for today.